Good morning, fellow ruminators. Welcome back to another session, Rumination with Andrew. Thank you for joining, and we are about to discuss a very important topical matter. Now, this morning, I think I shall be looking at the country of Marcus Garvey, Jamaica, and some of the problems that we are often ignoring and forsaking, if you will. Jamaicans have a tendency not to want to wash its dirty laundries in public, which is good for all intents and purposes, because we should not be washing or airing a lot of times or, um, you know, or problems or intractable problems to the public. But the fact of the matter is that we're living in a world now that is not no longer secretive, right? Things are just on display. And before tourists used to go to Jamaica and they would not go with cameras. Right now we have cameras on our phones, right? So people are constantly making videos, right? So the tourists go to Jamaica and they have videos, they make videos of their times spent in Jamaica, walking on the streets, interacting with the people, and just about every activity in which they are engaged on that island, they make videos of. Now, a lot of the videos, if we are honest with ourselves, coming out of Jamaica are not very positive. They do not look good. They do not represent the island of Marcus Garvey very well. We look like a backward, um, unprogressive, and also economically deprived nation. And let's not fool ourselves. Let's not fool ourselves. We are not much better than Haiti at the moment. We might just be 10 years or a little bit more ahead of them, but we're not much far behind. And that should not be. We have not perhaps had the challenges that Haiti has had. I mean, since its independence, in 1804, it has always been attacked, right? Right up to now. So Haiti is a special case. Jamaica, yes, we have had our challenges or problems, but if we were true to ourselves and if we had remained true to God, as our motto says, then I think we would have been in a better position. But I think over the years, we have been sweeping our problems under the carpet and having them stay there. And right now, I think that the problems stink to high heavens. And we need to confront the reality. We have been living a lie for too long. And we cannot hide behind Bob Marley or dancehall music or Usain Bolt or these people. We've been hiding behind these people, and these people should be the image of what Jamaica looks and stand and is about. But we understand that that is not so. Individual achievements cannot supplant the achievements that should have been made through a collective effort. We have to look at the collective. And when you look at the collective in Jamaica, it is not a pretty sight. It is just not a pretty sight. And I think that our media houses and our media outlets are just not doing enough to inculcate the civic pride that we once had. The University of the West Indies, for example, needs to do more. It's just having their professors going to conferences and there seem not to be any sort of merger between scholarship and governance and good governance, because most of the politicians in Jamaica are coming from the University of the West Indies and they represent that university. And oftentimes what we see is much to be desired, is much to be desired, something that we have to grapple with. And I'm not saying here that the University of the West Indies has not played its role. It has, and I'm sure that it continues to play a very significant role. But I think that something is missing from that university. And I understand what is missing. I know that there is this disconnect and there is this attempt sometimes to worship professors and believing that they are not human beings, and the relationship between student and professors there need to take on a different sort of, you know, relationship strategy, whatever. I think that it needs to change. There needs to be some change, and there needs to be some level of, as I was suggesting, the wedding or the merger of scholarship, because oftentimes what the university says and what is happening on the ground are two distinct realities. Now, how can we run a country where the government, for example, is sponsoring and gives lots of money to the University of the West Indies, and yet still we're not seeing anything, any policy change in Jamaica? We're not seeing anything. What is universities? What's the purpose of university? It's still functioning within that colonial system where university only functions for the elite classes and to maintain the status quo. And the University of the West Indies in Jamaica is maintaining the status quo. Let us look, for example, at Barbados. And one of these days, I shall go through Professor Orlando Patterson's work in The Confounding Island. I think it was in chapter 2 that he looked at the difference between Jamaica and Barbados in terms of the development that Barbados has moved far ahead than Jamaica. And he was looking, why? Why has that happened when Jamaica has produced some outstanding people worldwide? Yet still we have not been able to translate those sort of brilliance and outstanding achievement in the development of the country. Something is wrong. And it's time for us to now get together and say something is fundamentally wrong with what is happening there. The Haitians are doing it in a very, very chaotic environment right now, right? We do not want to be forced into that chaotic environment which the Haitians find themselves to be able to come up with solutions. For so many years, we have been talking about improving this part of the economy, that part of the economy, without success. What is happening? Is that we're brainless, we don't have the critical thinking skills, or is it that we have this sort of enormous ego in which we do not want to listen to each other so that we can learn from our mistakes and that we can move along? We need to have a very deep discussion about what is happening in Jamaica, and one that is not intellectually centered. We like to quote things and to behave as if we're so bright when oftentimes we're not as smart as we think we are. Because if we are smart, then you will build your economy, right? You're going to build your economy. You're going to use that brilliance in building your economy and also uplifting the standard of living in the land of Marcus Messiah Garvey. That is what education is all about. Marcus Garvey did not just waste his brain away at just speaking. He was on the ground trying to uplift the standard of living of his people and to show them that anything that any man coming from any ethnic group can achieve, Black people or people of third world nations can also achieve. And the palpable contradictions as you land on the soil of Jamaica, this is just flagrant, palpable contradictions that you see. The level of poverty, right? Just hits you like a category 6 earthquake. Do we have category 6 earthquake? Or, well, if that's a hurricane, we have category 5, right? We have category 5 hurricane, right? Powerful earthquake hits you in the face, and you wonder why, after so many years, could we not have improved on the lives of our people? Now, on Friday, Peter Espeut in the Gleaner wrote an interesting article, and he itemized some of the contradictions that we have in that country. But what I would like to focus more on, because he spoke about the banking crisis and the fact that sometimes people go to the ATM machines and there is no money, and people there sometimes are in long lines. Somebody told me that if you go to an ATM machine, for example, in Jamaica, do we call it in Jamaica ABM? You know, it's ATM. I know it as ATM, but maybe it's ABM in Jamaica. The constant expression he was using, he said ABM. But for those who are Americans, ATM, all right, is what I'm going to use that word, ATM. So if you go to an ATM machine in Jamaica, what Peter Espeut is saying in his article is that, well, he didn't say it in the article, somebody was telling me this now. Peter did not say this in his article, but I was speaking to a Jamaican citizen who was telling me that if you go to an ATM machine in Jamaica, and you attempt to extract money from the bank, from the ATM machine, and you are unsuccessful because the bank perhaps didn't have any money or for whatever reason, they charge you a service fee. And I'm wondering, how can you be charging people a service charge or fee for something that was unsuccessful, for a transaction that was unsuccessful, right? Money that was not received. How can you be doing that, right? A particular young miss on TikTok, and I know I have to be careful on, you know, some of the stories that come from social media, but there is just a plethora of these experiences being voiced by many Jamaicans on social media. Now, this young miss was talking about an experience in which, you know, this is now the Bank of Nova Scotia. That is an international bank. And we often hear stories about the National Commercial Bank. But, you know, in this case, it was the Bank of Nova Scotia, of which she was narrating her experience. Now, the young miss said that she was at home during the holiday weekend on Good Friday. And she got a message, you know, a signal from the bank that somebody was using her card. You know, somebody who was unapproved. You know, she had not given this person her card, but that person somehow had access to her account and was using her card at another location. She contacted the bank through, I think they have these call centers there, and she was able to call one of the centers. And the person with whom she spoke, she expressed her concern and what was taking place, the experience she was having. And the person, you know, she suggested that the card be put on hold, right? That they stop the card. The fact of the matter is that after the weekend, the holiday weekend, she went to the bank last Monday. And she, having spent a long time at the bank, she said that when she got to the teller, she told them her experience, what had happened, the fact that somebody was using her card and that person had not received her approval. And she had her card at home, so she doesn't know, you know, who had access to the card and why they had access to the card. And she said the bank teller was letting her know that she is the problem. That the fact that somebody's using your card, she should have been more responsible, and that it is her responsibility to read her bank statements to see whether or not there are any sort of suspicious activities, you know, coming from that statement. I'm like, are you for real? If something just happened recently, how would she even have got a bank statement for an activity that happened on Friday and she was at the bank on Monday? Now tell me, what is going on in Jamaica? And it seems to me that the regulatory, or not audiences, but organizations, those organizations who should be, or, you know, which should be regulating, I should say, these activities, are just not working in the interest of the common man. And that's what Peter Espeut was essentially saying, that we are paying them these huge sums of money coming from taxpayers from an impoverished country, And yet still, they are not representing the interest of the Jamaican people. Now look at that. I mean, I don't know what eventually happened if she got back her money, but if I am or judging from the pulse of what is happening in Jamaica, I think she didn't. The bank was that brazen to let her know that she was culpable, even though she had not given anyone the permission to have used her card. And these banks are making phenomenal profits, astronomical profits in that impoverished country. And Jamaicans are happy with it. It seems that they think that that is the norm, right? There's another Jamaican, a Jamaican American citizen who went to Jamaica recently, and she was narrating on social media as well that she went to a bank in Jamaica, somewhere in Kingston, and the queue was so long, right? So she was there and she realized that the bank tellers weren't doing enough to expedite what was happening there and to ensure that people's time, was respected. They were just slowly doing their business nonchalantly. So she went to one of the tellers and she was, letting him or her know that, can you speed up the process? And the Jamaican who was behind her began to complain and said, and decided to say to her that you need to be patient, you need to be more patient, because she was comfortable with what was happening. She didn't think that it was necessary to have voiced her concern about the slow process in the bank and the fact that these tellers were not mindful of people's time and the fact that time is money. Right? Now, how can we move on and progress and move forward if we continue to nourish that sort of lackadaisical and backward culture? Because we are a backward culture, and it's time for us to face up with that. And talking about, making Bob Marley and these musicians and athletes heroes is not going to make us move forward. And that is what I have been saying here. And I see too many of our citizens, those in North America and those who are in the wider diaspora, they go back to Jamaica, and Jamaica was sweet. They enjoyed themselves, and it is good because you've worked hard and you have that right to go back, to return to your island and to enjoy. But please, you have to look at the majority of the citizens. And if you look at the majority of the citizens, are you happy that you have left these people behind? And while you're spending time on your yacht and you're spending time in these all-inclusive hotels, when you walk around the town, are you happy with people who look like you? Or are you happy with their socioeconomic status and conditions? Are you really happy? Are you really content with what you see there? Remember now that if what you're seeing is real, which it is real poverty, right? Real poverty, maybe I should say unnecessary poverty, because Jamaica doesn't have to be that poor. But we understand that the millionaires and the perhaps billionaires want to control everything, just like what is happening in Haiti. And our elites, I have been saying on this channel, and some of you are going to, oh, Andrew, make sure what you're saying, there is evidence and you have the proof to back it up. You go to Jamaica, you see it, it's there. It is there. The moment you land, it hits you in the face. Abject poverty and the desperation of people. And that's one of the reasons why they don't want to make our beaches accessible. The government does not want to tell you that because the conditions are just too dire that people are just going to be harassing people all on the beaches. So they have decided that let's make the beaches inaccessible to the normal Jamaican citizens, those who can pay, and they can go to the all-inclusive hotels and enjoy the beaches, yeah. Because obviously if you're paying, you are not that destitute, are you? So they will allow you access to those beaches. But you and I know that if we judge by what we see on the streets with the ordinary man, that that is going to be a legitimate claim that our people are destitute. They're not just poor. Lots of them are destitute. We've got to fix up ourselves and also to improve on the poor infrastructure in Jamaica. Because as I said before, tourists are taking they're making videos and they're taking pictures, but particularly videos, they're making videos of us and they're posting them online. And a lot of what is coming out of Jamaica is not positive. Even the ones that seem to be positive, the people are enjoying themselves and they like vibes in Jamaica and all of that nonsense. Yeah, when you look around, you see a level of desperation. That to me, it signifies that we've lost a sense of civic pride. We've lost that sense of civic pride. And all we're concerned about is culture, the Jamaican culture, and that, wow, people are enamored by our culture, but what is not said is that that is only for enjoyment, but nobody respects it. We want people to respect our culture and our people. And if our culture and people, the way in which we present that culture and people to the world is a shabby, unkempt manner, then people are not going to respect us, right? People are not going to respect us. And I don't care what title you have behind your name, because people are going to view us from the collective perspective that these are how Jamaicans live. This is the way how we speak. This is the way how we conduct ourselves. This is the way how we dress. That just walking around the country, you are getting the pulse of the nation. People are not going down to Jamaica and traveling to these uh, tourist destinations just to sit in a hotel and eat food, right? They want to experience authentic culture, right? And Jamaica's authentic culture right now needs much to be desired. It's too destitute. It is too poor, right? We've got to elevate the standard. And the University of the West Indies, I'm calling on you. You can't just be there in Mona there, just, pretending, oh, we have a lovely campus and they have all of these conveniences and think that people are going to respect you. And, some of the professors, I bring people to my home and my home is wonderful. People have wonderful homes everywhere in the world. In Africa, the parts of the Caribbean, all over the world, people have lovely homes, right? Nothing special about Jamaica. Absolutely nothing special about it. But we have this misunderstanding or this delusion that there is something special about it. And because there's something special, we think that we have this indispensable culture that everybody wants to have. And, without it, the world is going to cease to exist. And remember what I said to you, that during the spat that we had with the IMF under the Bruce Golding's administration, that thereabout when we were having, that spat and we were telling them that we can't swallow the bitter medicine that they wanted to impose upon us, that the people in Congress, the US Congress, said, let Jamaica burn. If they don't want to swallow the bitter medicine, let them burn. So it means, therefore, that we are not that important to the world as we like to think of ourselves. And since 2013, with the swallowing of this bitter medicine, the country has not really advanced. In fact, we have gotten poorer. I don't care what your elites are telling you down there about, wow, our fiscal discipline. And we have done this. And, in many years ago in 2012, Jamaica was the third, what do they say now? The third most indebted country. some of these propaganda I'm seeing online, the third most indebted country. And now we are, I think, number 72. It means, therefore, that we are not as indebted as we were in 2013. But in the neoliberal world, in the neocolonial world, yes, we might be not so much indebted, but we are poorer than we were in 2000 because of inflation. Obviously, when the IMF goes down there, they are going to order that um, you know, that you lower the rate of your currency. Right? They're going to do that. And that has been going on. And people are feeling it in their pockets. And there are people down there who tell me, Andrew, I can't buy food. I can't afford food. Basic things that Jamaicans used to be able to afford, like food. And they would not even question. They would like to entertain people at home because at least as poor as they were, they could buy food. And people could estimate per month what they could, what their food bill would be. Right now, they can't. Every week they go to the supermarkets, they're telling me, the food prices go up astronomically. And so just like a little, going up a little, astronomically in a very poor and destitute country. But you know what happened? The few people who are doing well do not care. They just leave everything. They have this implicit faith in the government that the government will take care of things. And perhaps that's why UWI, that's the University of the West Indies, just said, okay, the government will take care of things. We don't have to do anything. We can just have our lazy brains writing unnecessary papers, writing papers that really are not helping to grow Jamaica and helping to solve the problem of Jamaica. They should just be kept in the ivory towers because that is what university is all about, to maintain the status quo. But as I've said before, and I think I digressed a little, how was a country like Barbados able to grow and to have developed more than a country like Jamaica? Look at also Trinidad. You might say Trinidad is oil rich. Yeah, and yeah, we probably can accept that. But we can look at the difference between Norman Manley, for example, and perhaps his son Michael Manley, and what the Trinidad intellectual, the guy that wrote Capitalism and Slavery, Eric Williams, right? Look at the difference in terms of how they were able to build their economy. And Eric Williams was no ordinary intellectual. What an intellectual he was. But he was not just caught up in this ideology. And I'm sure that the Trinidadians have their beef with him, they have their criticisms of him. And yes, you're going to have criticism of everybody, including myself, because we are humans. But at the end of the day, we can't deny that he was able to have merged scholarship with what was happening on the ground in Trinidad and to uplift the standard of living of his people by educating his people, right? What is happening in Jamaica, for example? Let's talk about the education system because that is something that I came here to talk about. Because as Peter Espeut is, intimating or has intimated in his article, is that the government of our day like to go around, and I'm looking at the Minister of Education here, Minister Favour Williams, and they like to give you this grandiose and this, wonderful picture of what is taking place in their portfolio and under their leadership when it's really the opposite of what they're telling. Now, why do you lie to yourselves just for a vote and to make yourself look important? And when you leave behind, when you leave that office, you leave behind all the intractable problems. Nothing changes in Jamaica. Nothing. Always some superficial changes. Right? And somebody was talking to me. I was talking to somebody the other day, and we like to intellectualize. And I think one of the things about it is I think we often do not really want to challenge our governments. So when I was talking to her and we were talking about the banking system, and she was saying that, our system is being modernized and it's going at a fast pace. It's like it's going at a fast pace where we cannot really keep up with the fast pace in which it is moving. So we're moving probably 10 steps backward. What sort of nonsense is that? Right? If we're modernizing, we have to have a vision of where we're going. One of the things that we lack is vision, right? And our national anthem says it, give us vision lest we perish. Knowledge send us, Heavenly Father. Grant true wisdom from above. What a waste of national anthem that Jamaica has. One of the most beautiful national anthems in the world, period. Right? Yet we have not been able to live up to the virtues of that national anthem, to the aspirations, to the hope. Right? Jamaica really is a dream deferred. And I think that at this juncture of our history, I don't think that anything is going to come of that experiment that is called Jamaica. It has failed. And we just have to come to grips with that. It has failed. Now that it has failed, what are we going to do about it? Can we come together and find ways in which, like when you fail a math test, you can't just be going and taking the test every day and then not trying to come to grips with why are you failing the math test all the time? And what strategies can you implement to improve on your skills? But let's look at a little at the Patterson's report about the education system. And I did talk about it this morning briefly. That is the report that was done by Orlando Patterson and his team regarding the education system in Jamaica. There was a report, and one of the things that I don't like about our intellectuals is this constant repetition of what UNESCO says or does not say, and all of this nonsense. Like, here you have Mr. Patterson, Dr. Patterson, if you're listening. UNESCO has noted that, and he's quoting here, equity is at the core of the Sustainable Development Goals. And what is the Sustainable Development Goals? I've been reading about these things. And how is this going to be applied to Jamaica? And then he talks about educational disparity is chronic in the island, considerably worsened by the pandemic. But he has mentioned some things here that we need to look at. I'm just looking briefly, as I said, I have to go through this with you another time. There are two extremely different school systems in the country, right? This is the Patterson Report. One that is world-class and serves mainly the haves, the other pertaining to the vast majority that serves the have-nots, and that is largely failing. Jamaica has a gender problem, but unlike most of the rest of the world, it is boys who are at a disadvantage. This peculiar gender problem is directly related to the crisis of unattached youth, gangs, and violence, right? So we have the same problem that Haiti is currently experiencing, problems with gangs and violence. And I think we are more violent than Haiti is. And that is something that I've not been able to grasp. Why is Jamaica more violent than Haiti, given that Haiti is the so-called poorest country in the Western Hemisphere? Why? Where is the sociological, research on that from the University of the West Indies? Have they explored that, or have they explored the topic and then they put it in the libraries to sit there and to grow dust? Because that is what the University of the West Indies does. Excellent research in some cases, and they just put it in the library and recycle it because people need to do their degrees, and that is what education is all about, and they should be alienated. That research should be alienated from the Jamaican people and from the people who are making policies in Jamaica. I'm not suggesting here that they have done that research, but if they have not done it, who has that, where is the level of imagination to be able to ask the question, why? Right? Why is Haiti less violent? And the only reason why Haiti now has a lot of violence is because they don't have a government. But we are not in that situation where we have never had a functioning government. So why are we so violent? Why has the government not been able to have put a dent in criminal activities? Is it because the government itself is criminal? We have to ask these hard questions, and we've got to be able to tackle them now, because if not, we are fast morphing into the chaos that we see in Haiti right now. Right? We're not far from there. Because just one disastrous or even natural disaster. Let's say Jamaica has a hurricane, a category 3 hurricane, whatever, tomorrow. It's the end of Jamaica. It might just be the end of Jamaica, because that is going to wreak a lot of destruction on the infrastructure of the country. And we don't know what's going on with the IMF and what they are doing and how they're probably milking the country, sucking the lifeblood out of that economy. And our elites, our economic and our educational elites, our so-called intellectuals, are silent. Right? Are silent. They don't even know what is going on in that country. Now, this, we hasten to add, is not the result of positively favoring girls, but of the special social circumstances faced by boys. Their often abusive upbringing and the cultural norms of masculinity from the compelling popular culture that too often disincentivizes education. So he's talking about the compelling popular culture here, and we know it's coming from the music. Right? We know that this is coming from this music that has coarsened our Jamaican males, right? This coarse dancehall music that has destroyed the fabric of the Jamaican culture. No, but you have the people like the Caroline Coopers and some of the idiotic people at the University of the West Indies that continue to sing the virtues of dancehall music, and that it's a representation of the culture. And that's why we should have it, because these dancehall musicians are critiquing the Jamaican culture. And look at what is happening. Because these dancehall singers are really role models for young men in Jamaica. Right? They are the role models for young men in Jamaica. And the way how they dress, the way how they speak, the way how they walk, everything you can, when you see a young Jamaican man or boy, well, let's call him a man, that's what you're seeing. This is the type of behavior that you are seeing, antisocial behavior often displayed by our young Jamaican males. Now, Jamaican girls and women pay a high price for this male failure, reflected in unusually high rates of sexual abuse by men from an early age, and the fact that they experience the highest rate of femicide, homicide, nearly all by men in the world. In the world, right? There is absolutely nothing that we are not, that is negative, that we are not high on the rank in the world. Probably nothing. Everything that is negative, Jamaica is going to show up. Very few things that are positive that we show up on the ranking, right? And then we talk about, oh, we have some wonderful professors at Harvard University and Princeton's and Oxford, and they're Jamaican and they're doing well and they represent us well on the world stage. Now, what if we have left the majority of our population behind? Yes, we can sing the virtues of these individuals and their levels of achievement and the fact that they represent us. But as I said to you, these individual achievements are not what people see when they go to Jamaica. They are seeing the conditions of the ordinary man, right? Now, Peter Espeut, let's go to Peter Espeut's articles. He has also looked at the the situation. Oh, I think I'm not going to be able to see it here. So let me read it from here. Let me close my screen here. Because I'm not subscribed to the Gleaner, but I have it on my phone. And this is what Peter Espeut is saying here, having read the Patterson's report. He says at the annual conference of the Jamaica Teachers Association, JTA, this week, the Minister of Education, maybe in an attempt to downplay the Patterson report, celebrated what she called 60 years of progress in education since independence. The Patterson report recited a litany of what is wrong with Jamaica's education system. Is there a disconnect? Who is she trying to convince? But that is what happens, that there are always contradictions in Jamaica. They like to prop up, the politicians like to prop up how good they are, and they like to show off and impress Jamaican people that they are great. And how could we have an excellent education system when we have the majority of our teachers going to North America and to Canada and to other countries every year? Every year, we have loads of teachers migrating, leaving the education system. There is no continuity. And we know if you do not have that continuity, you can't have excellent schools at all. And I'm not suggesting here that some of just cannot migrate. Of course, you're going to have some of them. And there have always been migration. There's always been migration, right? But the fact of the matter is that the level of migration, the high level of migration that we're experiencing is at a high level. And how is it that our economy is so prosperous, right? Politicians give you this impression that our economy is prosperous and that we're doing much better than in previous times. For the rich, right? For the wealthy, for the aristocrats, that is. Who are they fooling? Now, she announced, and this is now from Minister Favold, and I quote, 60 years ago, if I could cast your minds back, almost 500,000 adults in Jamaica were illiterate. And then today, the literacy rate of Jamaica overall is 88%, significantly higher. Do you see how your politicians speak, right? They use a lot of stats, and these stats are not true, right? Because that's what they use. And people say, wow, that's impressive, right? We have improved. But listen to what now Patterson is saying. In 2021, just 3 years ago, the Patterson report, that's coming from Orlando Patterson, stated a third of students at the end of primary school could not read. A third of students at the primary school could not read, right? This is coming from the Patterson report, and that report was made in 2021, and it has not yet been debated in Parliament. This is what Peter Espeut was saying in the article, that this report has not yet been debated because our politicians don't care. They did allude to the fact that he was there writing a report. So why the waste of time and waste of money? And I'm sure they must have had to pay Patterson a lot of money for his time and for his effort. It's about how many pages? 375 pages, I think, of an extensive report that was made on the Jamaican education system. And, all the people that were on the committee, was a lot of people that made up that committee. So I'm sure they also had to be paid for their time and for their effort and perhaps their research. Nothing is going to come of it. While people were at home in Jamaica being denied the right to go and work, impoverishing further, going into debt and poverty. While people like the Orlando Pattersons and these people who are doing, working on this research, I'm sure they got paid, right? I'm sure they got paid. And this is sad. 56% could not write, and 57% could not identify information in a simple sentence. People, that's more than half of the population. This is more than half of the population, right? I'm not sure if they have a literacy program at the University of the West Indies. Do they have a program in reading and literacy? Somebody can probably contact me. I don't know. I don't think so. I do not think that the University of the West Indies has a program which all teachers should be involved in. If you're going to be a teacher in Jamaica, you should be involved in reading and literacy. What do you call it now? Whatever you want to call it. I think literacy program. You should have a literacy degree. And literacy courses should be mandatory, right? For all teachers in training in Jamaica. Patterson says that in 2021, only 66% of students at the end of primary school were literate. Only 66%. And by literate, we don't know if they are only called, they recognize words, but they might not be able to understand what they have read. Literacy might just mean that, just the ability to call words. We don't know. He didn't specify here. And taking into account the accumulated illiteracy in the older folk over the decades, for Jamaica in 2024 to have an overall literacy rate of 88% is well miraculous. So here he's actually being, sarcastic because he realized that the minister is actually lying, right? She's lying that we have a literacy rate of 88%. And I'm not saying that Favor Williams is deliberately lying because maybe that's what she gets from the statistics in that the official stats probably suggest that. And she's just, robotically, because that's what we do in Jamaica, articulate those stats. That could be what happened, because I have no evidence to suggest that she deliberately lied to the Jamaican people, even though that's what politicians often do. Now, is Minister Williams challenging the accuracy of the Patterson Report? That's the question that Peter Espeut is posing. Is this why she has not tabled it in Parliament for debate 2 years after it was submitted? So 2 years after this report, or the Patterson Report was submitted, it has not yet been tabled in the Jamaican Parliament. Right? But what they can talk about is who walked out of Parliament, and they have all of these infantile discussions and behavior in Parliament, and people do not hold them accountable, right? For things like these, for substantive issues like these. We don't hold them accountable. Who said what and who was, asked to leave Parliament, and all of these teenage discussions and, I don't know. Something seems to be wrong with the land of Marcus Mosiah Garvey. It's interesting that two of the most important, if not the most important, Black men, the Sound Louverture, and I was rereading the book, The Black Jacobins by Cedar James, and he was narrating the whole story of Toussaint Louverture, and he mentioned that during the Haitian Revolution, that there was a French guy, I think his name was Vicente, that went to France, and he was narrating to Bonaparte, that's Napoleon, right? The essence of the man, the metal of Toussaint Louverture, and he says that this guy, he's superior to everybody on the island, whether black or white. He is a superior guy, superior in every sphere of his life. And when I read James' account of the sound, when I read the book first, I was wondering, what is this guy talking about? Because I know that Cedar James, had this communist mindset, right? So I was wondering if he, because of this revolutionary Toussaint he was giving, he was exaggerating, but he was not exaggerating, because I read lots of other works on Toussaint, and everybody agrees that this was an extraordinary leader with an extraordinary mind. And these people did not go to school. They didn't have formal education like the Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And Marcus Mosiah Garvey had also an extraordinary mind. Yet these two very important, if not the most important, Black figures of the 19th and 20th century, respectively, emanate from countries that are lagging behind, right? That are lagging behind, right? Because the only country that Jamaica can compete with now in the Caribbean is Haiti. All of the other Caribbean countries have gone ahead of us. And somebody sent me earlier on this year about how many tourists have gone to Jamaica, how was it 1 million tourists or whatever. I'm hearing stories from Curacao, this friend I have from Curacao, and he's telling me that lots of tourists are in Curacao at the moment, a whole load, and he's right there and he's seeing them. He's letting me know that you have tourists to kill in Curacao at the moment, right? And Curacao does not have a Bob Marley, doesn't have a Bob Marley, and yet they attract hundreds of thousands of tourists, right? But because having millions of tourists is something to be, something to be happy about, right? Because we're still slaves. We still have an enslaved mentality. Now, this is what I think Patterson is saying. No, this is what now, this is the information that Faval is giving, Minister Faval, that is Faye, what's her name? Yeah, is giving, the Minister of Education. 60 years ago, only 40%, this is now Faval talking, only 40% of the teachers then were trained. Today, we boast 10 teacher training institutions, including those with teacher education faculties. I would say 100% of our teachers are trained, right? This is something that I thought that Peter was nitpicking. I didn't think that this was a very strong argument, but let's read in what he says here. This is now Peter Espeut responding to the comment that the quotation that I just gave from Favor Williams. I am willing to bet, Mr. Williams, that no more than 20% of physics, chemistry, and biology teachers in Jamaica high schools are trained teachers. So he's saying that he thinks that, fewer teachers, you have a smaller number of teachers who are trained teachers, right? When I say trained teachers, I mean that they went to a teacher training institution, right? Because those who come from UA without having gone to the teacher training institutions are not considered to be trained graduates, right? Trained graduates mean that they have been to a teacher training institution. But I don't think that it matters, because based on what we're seeing now, I think that if they have the content and they have the level of creativity, they can teach, right? I would prefer them to have the content than not to have the content, because we were having problems with that in recent times or in previous times in Jamaica, where the teachers went to teachers college, but they were short on content, right? When they used to do their diplomas, right? But now if the teachers went to UA or went to university, whatever university, and they return to Jamaica, and they don't have the teacher training experience, I don't think I would necessarily pay a lot of attention on that. It would be nice, don't get me wrong. And one of the things that the teachers, the high schools or all the schools in Jamaica should have a head teacher. And if teachers come from UA and they have not been to the teacher training, or they have not been through, I should say, the teacher training experience, that you could develop a program, an after-school program or a summer program in which teachers could be, they could attend some workshops, right? And get some training. It's not anything, it's not a great thing, we put a lot of emphasis on things that, because I went to Michael, for example, and, if you're not creative, you're not creative, you're just not creative, you know? you know, and a lot of the things that we learned in teachers college, don't get me wrong, it's necessary and it teaches some things and so on. But I don't think that many of the teachers even remember how to write a lesson plan after many years. I don't think we do, right? I do not think many teachers know how to write lesson plans, having spent many years. And it's something that I could write after leaving teachers college. I could write a lesson plan, closing my eyes. Right now, it would take me some time to do it. I mean, to write it the way in which we learned it, the manner in which we learned it at school. I can write one, a short, a shortcut one, but to write that lengthy and detailed lesson plan, I don't have that skill anymore. It's gone, right? Sometimes also not necessary, the way in which we teach at the college. I just think that teachers need to have certain morals and have a passion for teaching and learning, right? Because remember now that even though you're a teacher, you're constantly learning. And if you go into the classroom with that passion for teaching and learning and seeing students develop, I think that you will do a great job. But we also have a lot of other factors that which impinge on learning in Jamaica. Poverty is number one. The fact that too many of them go to school, that they're hungry, the lack of proper infrastructure is not there. You can't have 40 students who can't read or who are having problems in reading in one class. That's not going to happen. You're setting up the teacher for failure. You're setting up the teacher for failure. And this is what happened in Jamaica. You put a teacher in a class of students that are backward academically, and you expect them to create miracles, right? I remembered when I went on teaching practice to a school, or it was teaching practice in Jamaica. And I think it was, it was somewhere in Spanish Town, and I had to tell them that I can't do it. And I love teaching and I love children, but I just could not do it. The level of destitution was just too great, right? I just could not handle it. Couldn't handle it. And you have to give kudos to the teachers who are able to remain in those destitute environments, right? And develop the minds of our children. It is sad. It's just really sad. Jamaica is a sad case. It's a sad case. Now, this is another contradiction that Peter Espeut is highlighting in favor of speech. In her address to the JTA, the minister declared, and the minister is now speaking, the Minister of Education, today, every child born in Jamaica is guaranteed a space in a high school. The conversation is now, which high school? Which one? And Peter Espeut is asking, really? Now the minister was not clear about what she means by high school. Is she including all age schools and junior high schools in her definition? If so, then every child born in Jamaica has been guaranteed a space in a high school since long before independence, because, that's what they've done. They've upgraded these schools, calling them high schools, even though they're not the same level with Immaculates and the York Castles and the Westwoods and the St. Hildas, right? But they're high school, and they put them into one basket. Well, they don't even put them into one basket. They're still segregated schools, but you just call them high school because that is just a superficial change, as it were, right? Because the York Castles and the Wilmers and the Jamaica colleges are going to be way ahead because they are still the traditional high schools in Jamaica that the colonial class left. And Jamaica has not really changed from this colonial system that much. Even the way we educate our children is still perpetuating that colonial mindset, right? Yet still we want to become a republic without even having transformed our education system. I think the best, even though I think Barbadian Republican status is also bogus, and kudos, shout out to my Barbadian friends, but at least they will be able to handle that Republican status much more than Jamaicans could or would, because at least they have educated the majority of their populace. We have not. And neither have we shown that interest to do so, right? So these are things that I just wanted to highlight and say to Jamaicans that it's time for us now to work on educating our people, beautifying our culture, refining the culture, and ensuring that we are Jamaicans and we are proud of being so. At the current moment, what's coming out of Jamaica as culture is below standard. is below standard. And it's time for us now to accept that reality and not begin to make excuses. Oh, Andrew, you are washing our dirty laundry in public. Well, guess what? The foreigners are also washing your dirty laundry in public because, as I said at the initial stage of this video, that foreigners, tourists, are going to Jamaica and they're also making lots of videos and posting them online about Jamaica and their experiences in Jamaica. And they talk about the dilapidated infrastructure. They talk about the destitution, the harassment, the coarse and crass behavior, the chaos that they see, for example, in downtown Kingston, right? And in one of the videos, this person mentioned the only place I go to see and I see these sort of destitution in places like remote parts of some countries in Africa or maybe in Asia, right? How have we got here? And over the years, why haven't we tried to uplift the standard of our people? And I'm not suggesting here that we're going to be wealthy, and we don't have to be wealthy, right? But we should have a country that everybody can be proud of. And when foreigners go there, we can say that, yes, they're going to have a good experience. But our understanding of good experience is to have this temporary dancing and let's get together and be all right, while behind the scenes, everywhere around, is just confusion and a lawless society, right? And if you read Martin Henry's articles, the now deceased Martin Henry, the former Jamaican journalist, who in his wisdom wrote, and he wrote from his heart. Martin Henry wrote from his heart. What a sincere guy he was. Many of our journalists just write because they can write, right? But they're not writing from the heart. And they are also not able to put into proper perspectives our problems, right? And I don't think there's anyone in recent times, and I don't think there's anyone in Jamaica right now, who has been able to put into proper context and perspective our problems and our culture like Martin Henry. I don't think so. Every Sunday, he wrote, and he's not just quoting from like Ian Bourne was doing, just quoting from these scholarly texts and books and all of that stuff, right? He was able to synthesize in and I don't want to use the word complex, in clear and well-defined language, right? Or problems. And he proffered a lot of times solutions. If our government was listening to him and would have perhaps included him as an advisor, which they perhaps should have done before his death, before his untimely death, perhaps we would have been a better society. But I don't think that Martin Henry, even whilst he was alive, I don't think he was an appreciated character in Jamaica. I think people would see him as having this, you know, elite, even though he wasn't an elite, this elite persona. And because he was a refined Jamaican man, he was a gentleman. He was what? He epitomized what all Jamaican males should be like, right? A firm family man, right? And one who is not, or who was not afraid to vouch for what is right and decent. But right now, we're living in a society where we have few, as the Patterson Report suggests, few male role models. And you look at the University of the West Indies, you see some of these professors, male professors, Jamaican male professors, and much to be desired. The way how they speak, the way how they conduct themselves, right? Not much different from what you see on the streets, right? Not much different from what you see on the road in terms of the cadence, the way how they express themselves, right? Something is wrong. Something is fundamentally wrong, and we've got to talk about it. If we do not highlight these problems, we cannot move forward. And all of this nonsense about the fundamentals of the economy, and we are now, you know, not so much indebted, and we have practiced fiscal discipline and all of this nonsense. And I'm not here suggesting that we should not practice fiscal discipline, right? But I'm suggesting the way in which the IMF is telling us that we need to practice fiscal discipline is not the way that is going to lead us into prosperity. It is going to lead us into slavery, right? It's going to lead us into slavery, right? And that is why when after Toussaint had the first phase of the revolution was fought, the slaves were successful. Toussaint, the first thing he did was to rebuild, I should say, the economy. Because do you know that Toussaint was so nationalistic? He loved the French culture because he grew up in that sort of culture. He was surrounded by the French aristocracy. He befriended them, they befriended him, and he believed in the French Revolution and the ideologies, the ideals of the French Revolution of equality, equality, and fraternity, brotherhood, and what's the other one again? And liberty. He believed in all of these noble ideals. And that's why he built the economy. And he sent messages to France, to Napoleon, to, I invite you to come and see. I don't want to kill you. I don't want to destroy a civilization that is important, right? Yet still, Toussaint was an African, what we call an Afrocentric, right? He was an Afrocentric person, just like Marcus Mosiah Garvey. But they did not reject the refinement that came from the Europeans. Because, we can't ignore the fact, and even W.E. Du Bois and C.L.R. James, these were two Black men who spoke about the illiteracy of the slaves, right? Because the slaves they could not be literate and refined. But in Jamaica, we have a situation in which we are now, or we have now celebrated, or we are now celebrating, I should say, we're now celebrating and lauding ignorance. And ignorance and an unrefined, propensity is what is African, right? And we have to be literate, have to speak a certain way that is not mainstream. And that is the whole essence of what our African past is about. What nonsense is that? When, if we just read the book by W. Du Bois on the Civil War in the United States, right? And he spoke about the fact that after the slaves came off the plantation and they were free in America, the first thing that they wanted to do was to read. They respected the virtues of education. They didn't like what was happening to them and how the plantocracy, the planters treated them during slavery, but they respected the fact that the plant class were, these guys were able to read and to write, and they could have, serious debates. They could be engaged in serious debates, right? So you don't have to like me or my culture, but you can respect what I have. And that maybe something that I have is something that you need to have. and vice versa. I might not like you and your behavior, but I can be able to say this person is a good debater, and I want to emulate some of the characteristics that you have. So this understanding of what Africa is or Africa is not, when we don't even have that memory of Africa. We don't have that memory of Africa. We can't say what Africa is or what Africa is not. And many of Jamaican citizens and you know, well, yeah, many of us will never go to Africa, have never been, and will never go. So why are we yearning for Africa when we are living in a Western or a westernized Jamaican culture? That's what we're living. Elements of African culture is there. We can't deny that. But you also have elements of Asian culture and elements of European culture all merged. It's a hybridized culture, right? So let's stop now talking about Africa and begin to build Jamaica, right? We have to begin to build Jamaica. I would say that we have not yet started. We pretended as if we had started in 1962, but we have not started. We did not really begin that process. And that is why we have not reached anywhere. Just a little, you know, superficial changes here and there, right? But we have not really been serious about building the culture for all Jamaicans. And I'm not saying that all Jamaicans are going to be rich, but we must be able to speak a certain way. We must be able to know what language we speak. Right now, we're having confusion in terms of really what language we'd like to speak after 62 years of independence, right? And when I listen to Jamaicans speaking the Creole, also, you really wonder what's in the head. Even the Creole, you're having the stuttering, you don't know what they're saying, there's no argument in what there's no sense in what they're saying, even though they are expressing themselves in the language of Africa, as many of our so-called pseudo-intellectuals would like to tell you, right? Yet so they can't be engaged in an intellectual or in a conversation that makes sense, where you can listen keenly to their arguments. And that is one of the reasons we're also having the high homicide rate there, because if people can't express themselves neither in English nor in the Creole, then what's the purpose? What's the point of even living? They are going to be frustrated. And what you have in Jamaica are lots of frustrated people. And frustrated people who can't even express, whether in the Creole or in English, their realities. They can't express it well to let you know what is really happening to them, right? And because they can't do that, they sort of decide to resort to violence, right? That's what the animal kingdom do, right? They can't speak. People in the animal kingdom, well, I say people, you know, the animals, right, cannot speak. They don't use language, right? So what they do, you can't go to the lion and tell him that, you know, you're not on his territory to contest his power, right? To challenge his power. You can't have that conversation with him. The moment you land on his territory, he's going to defend it and he's going to kill you if needs be, or he's going to injure you. He's going to do some serious harm to you, right? Only, you know, if it's something that is by some miracle you happen to go free. But once you go on the lion's territory, because the lion does not use language and you can't communicate with him or with the lioness, then you won't be able to be engaged in any meaningful conversation, and the lion acts instinctively, right? By inflicting harm on you. So we've got to now decide what we want out of life and what we want from a nation because we do not understand. I don't think we have yet understood what nationhood means or means. I don't think we understand that. I don't think we have yet come to that realization. What do we want out of this nation called Jamaica? What would we like it to be? Who are we as a people? Are we really Africans or are we Jamaicans? Are we Indians, Arawaks? Who are we? Right? I seriously think we need to come to grips with those realities because I think that we are a confused nation. And that is why we continue to lie to ourselves. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you will join me one more time in another discussion as we seek to enlighten our minds about a very or any important topical matter, any important topical issues of the day. See you then. All the best to you. Adios.